All right, well, welcome and thank you for joining today's session on T10, the Game Changer Thermostat. My name is Dawn Waltmath and I'm part of the Resideo sales training team. Before we get started, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping details. Each week, we'll be offering training opportunities to learn more about our Honeywell home products. For more information, including a schedule of our upcoming sessions, we invite you to visit www.resideo.com/webinars. In addition, our past webinars are now posted to our website and can be viewed for your reference. We are offering 1 hour of NATE continuing credit for our contractors who join our live training sessions. If interested, we will need your first and last name along with your NATE ID. If you've already provided us your information on your registration form, no further information is needed. If not, please send us an email to homes.university@resideo.com within 7 business days of today's date, and we will submit onto NATE. We are only able to process NATE credits for attending a live training session and are unable to process requests for watching a recorded version. For any additional questions about NATE, please visit their website at www.natex.org. And to reduce the potential of background noise, attendees have been muted. However, if you have any questions during today's presentation, please use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your screen. We will be reserving the last 15 minutes to answer your questions. And in the event we are unable to answer your question live, we will have the Resideo rep follow up with you. I'm now going to turn it over to Sean Sullivan, one of our Resideo contractor development specialists. Sean has more than 15 years experience in the HVAC business, and we're excited for him to present to you today. Sean, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Dawn. And again, my name is Sean Sullivan, and today's topic we'll be discussing the T10 Smart Thermostat with RedLINK sensor. So based in front of you is the T10 thermostat, which is on the left. It's a touchscreen digital display. And on the right is the remote temperature sensor that comes packaged in the box if you get the T10 kit. What we've done is some research, and we realized that within homes today, there's a lot of different things going on. So you can prioritize rooms based on your occupancy. So sometimes you'll have somebody down in the basement playing video games. Someone's upstairs making dinner, and maybe the kids are upstairs doing homework. So you want to prioritize different temperatures throughout the day rather than just looking at one sensing point at your thermostat. Another big thing is at night, you want to prioritize your bedroom. So you want to make it just the right temperature for when you're sleeping. So if you have that remote temperature sensor, which is wireless, mounting up in the master bedroom, you can actually set a priority to actually look at that temperature, whether you throw it into the average or just take over as the sensing point for your heating and air conditioning equipment. Life-changing events, such as a newborn, will also bring up applications where you want to prioritize a certain room. Make sure it doesn't get too cold or too hot for the person occupying that room. So you can do customizable temperature alerts, whether it gets too hot or too cold. It'll alert your smartphone if something is wrong. So this will also be for temperature or humidity alerts and even loss of power. So with that, let's get started, which is basically exactly what the thermostat will display when the installer initially powers the display up. Again, it's touchscreen. It'll give you a welcome message and say, let's set up your new thermostat. It's a touchscreen interface, so you'll hit get started and it'll walk you right through the setup of the thermostat. The T10, there's a couple different options in regards to the packaging and what it comes with. The THX321WFS 2001W is a kit, and that includes the thermostat shown on the very left, as well as one indoor remote wireless sensor, which utilizes our RedLINK technology, and that sensor is going to be able to do temperature, humidity, and motion. It also, in that box, will include our UWP, which is our universal wall plate mounting system, as well as a J-box adapter and cover plate. So we'll get into what those two last accessories are for in later slides. Below, we have the THX 321 WF2003W, which is the thermostat with all the above accessories less the remote sensor. So that's just the T10 thermostat, the universal wall plate, J-box adapter, and cover plate. And then on the bottom, we have other sensors. So if you want to add more sensors than the one that the top model comes with, you can go up to 20. If you want to add more, they come in kits of 2, so 2 packs, and you've got the C7 189R 2002. And again, that talks RedLINK 3.0. This is a sensor that works proprietary to our T10 thermostat, and it talks of a wireless protocol called RedLINK, which is an FM bandwidth. It's something that we developed at Resideo, Honeywell Home, to talk for strictly the HVAC network. This thermostat has a lot of compatibilities for different applications. So it is a touchscreen interface, and it can control, in regards to staging, up to 3 heat, 2 cool heat pumps, or 2 heat, 2 cool conventional pieces of equipment. You can utilize this thermostat for dual fuel. So if you have a heat pump with either fossil fuel backup, you can control that, whether the fossil fuel is gas or oil. And then it can also do auxiliary heat lockouts, and that can be based off of your outdoor temperature. Outdoor temperature can get presented to the thermostat via a hardwired sensor, or if you have the thermostat connected to the internet, it'll utilize the local temperature and be broadcasted and pulled right down from your Wi-Fi network. The T10 can also control 1 indoor air quality device. So if you have a humidifier, dehumidifier, or ventilator, it can control one of those, and that would be hardwired right from that piece of equipment to the T10 thermostat. The mounting plate, the universal wall plate, also known as the UWP, comes packaged in the box. This is a great device here because it's universal. What that means is all of our T-Series thermostats utilize this one wall plate. Great upgrade opportunity. So if you already have this on the wall, let's say the customer has a T4 or a T6 on the wall, and they heard about the T10, they call you and they want you to install it because of the remote sensing capabilities. It's as simple as popping off the existing thermostat and popping the T10 head onto it, programming it, connecting to Wi-Fi. So in reality, there's no tools needed as long as you have a common wire wired onto your subbase. So this thermostat, it is Wi-Fi. Because it's Wi-Fi, it cannot run off batteries. The battery consumption would be talking to the Wi-Fi network would drain the batteries fairly quickly. That being said, you have to have common wired to the subbase. On the left is our UWP, with the opened up. You would need common, so you have common on the bottom left and R for power on the bottom right. If you don't have common, then you're 1 wire short. We suggest that you stock and use the wire saver module, which is on the right. It's the THP 9045A1098. That's a device. It's fairly small. It's almost about 2-inch square. Gets mounted in the blower compartment of the furnace or air handler. And what comes into the top is your existing 4 wires that you have in the wall going up to the thermostat. So you'll wire that, and that'll be R, C, and W from the thermostat down to R, C, and W on a device, leaving that additional conductor to be wired to the K terminal on the thermostat, which is the terminals above the R terminal, and K on the device. What that does is it communicates fan and cooling signals over 1 wire, and it outputs them standard back to Y and G, as well as your other heating signals and power on the output tail whip, which is on the bottom. That's a pre-made tail whip. It's about 18 inches. It's already pre-stripped, labeled, color-coded, ready to go right onto the control board. So again, that adds a conductor for you if you don't have common in the wall. Mounting the thermostat to the wall is, you can mount it directly to the wall plate. However, if you have to cover up some paint or wallpaper or maybe some holes that the existing thermostat left, you can utilize the optional J-box, which is the junction box adapter, as well as the optional cover plate. To do so, you mount the J-box adapter to the wall first. Typically, you can reuse the anchors that are in the wall. Oftentimes, the spread on those anchors will be identical to what you'll need on the J-box. Mount that, make sure it's level. Then you snap in the universal wall plate, which there's no tools necessary. You just hang the hinge on the top and push in. And then lastly, push in the optional cover plate onto the J-box and UWP. As you can see on the bottom left, number 8, the T10 will slide internally into that device, and it'll make a nice subtle transition to the wall and cover up wallpaper, paint, and holes. So using the thermostat, when this thermostat's powered up, you'll see the digital display. If you look at the image on the right, you have a lot of information. The big number in the middle there is your indoor temperature. It's going to display what the current room temperature is, whether it's the temperature of the thermostat, or if you have the remote sensors, it'll display the average of all those that are selected into that average. You can see that the set points below that in a small number, you can adjust that temperature up and down with the arrows, and that'll be your desired temperature. And you can also see indoor humidity, which is the small percentage number above the room temperature in the center there. And one of the most important things to keep in mind is the number above, where you have the home, the little home picture with the number 2. That's your current priority. So that's an easy way for the homeowner to look at the stat and see how many sensors is the system actually controlling to or averaging right now. In that application, there's 2. And if you look on the left, that T10 there, the color display, that application is only currently looking at 1 sensor. So keep in mind, the homeowner can easily look at the stat and visualize and see how many sensors are we currently averaging to control our heating or cooling calls. And then lastly, on the bottom, you have 3 dash marks. That is your menu. So if you click on that, it's going to contain things such as your mode, fan, different scheduling opportunities, priorities, and other thermostat settings. So if we were to click that menu button, you see that that's where I can change my mode and fan, and I can scroll up and down too, so I can change my humidification or dehumidification set point. I'm going to scroll up and down much like a smartphone interface. So you just put your finger on and scroll up, then you'll see more information. So that second screen is displaying, if I were to scroll to the bottom of the screen, I can do things such as see my devices and sensors, check my status of my equipment, and even configure Wi-Fi, which we'll talk about in some later slides. If I scroll all the way down to the bottom, I get even more options. Installer options is going to be very important for the contractor. That's where you can do things like installer tests and setups, which again, we will talk about here in a few moments. Upon power up the thermostat, you'll see it'll say get started. And once you click on that, it'll ask you what language do you want, whether it be English, French, or Spanish. Once you click English, you'll click the bottom right button, just tapping that arrow on the bottom right, and it'll bring you into some other questions like, where is this thermostat going to be mounted? Is it going to be in a bedroom or a living space? And then you can name it. And it's also going to ask, do you have RedLINK accessories? So if you've got the T10 kit that comes with the remote sensor, you'll say yes. And it'll ask you, in what room will your sensor be located? And you can select either bedroom, living space, or other. If you have something unique, you can actually type in a unique name. A keyboard will show up. We have some images coming up on that. It'll give you some examples of how to place the remote sensor. So again, it's wireless. You want to keep it about 5 feet from the floor on an inside wall. So try to refrain from putting on an exterior wall. And don't place it behind you, furnitures or doors, making it inaccessible. And try to keep it away from air vents or windows that sunlight will degrade the sensor's accuracy. So once you press connect, it will say the sensor has been added, and then you can go mount the sensor on the wall. This is what the thermostat sensor looks like. So this is a temperature sensor on the top. You see there is a motion sensor, and below that is the connect button. That's what you'll be pressing to connect this remote sensor to your thermostat. You have to remove the cover to do so, and that just pops off if you pull it off the front. There's no tools necessary to get the cover off. And also below that's your 2 AAA alkaline batteries. They'll last about a year or so. Then the thermostat will let you know when those batteries are getting weak. If you need to replace them, you just pop them out, pop in new ones, and it automatically reconnects the sensor to the thermostat. This sensor is, there's 2 methods to mounting it. There comes with 3M strips in the box. You can sticky it to the wall, Or if you want a more permanent solution, there is a screw anchor kit that also comes in the box, and you can fasten it to the wall that way. So this is our RedLINK 3.0 wireless indoor sensor. Please keep in mind this sensor is only compatible today with our T10. It's not compatible with other thermostats. So if you have the Prestige IAQ or the RedLINK Vision Pro 8000, you'll need to use those legacy remote sensors, as they will not talk to this sensor, because this is RedLINK 3.0. It's an updated proprietary RedLINK wireless communication protocol. So T10 with these sensors works great. That's RedLINK 3.0. And what these sensors are going to be able to do is going to be able to monitor temperature, humidity, and motion. It can average multiple sensors across the home's network, or sense just from one priority location. And again, you can have up to 20 of these sensors connected per thermostat. So you can really dial in different rooms of where you want to prioritize and average those, and even schedule different times a day what rooms you want to look at and control to. When you look at a typical home, two-story home here with a basement, thermostat's going to be mounted somewhere, typically on the first floor. Other manufacturers range, they get about 50 feet. However, with our tried and true RedLINK technology, you're going to get about 200 feet of range. So there's a competitive difference there. And again, you just press connect, place the thermostat, and now we can stratify the home's interior. Once we add a sensor, if you want to add more, again, you can go up to 20. So there's two options. You can either hit add another sensor right there from the screen. So once you add the first one, this screen on the left will populate, and you can walk through that. Or you can go into installer setup and hit add new sensors. So if we get the sensor added, we can click add another sensor. And again, it'll ask you, is it going to go into a bedroom, living space, or other? And there's pre-populated lists of what bedrooms you want as far as names. And if you want to do something custom, like your kid's name, you can do a custom name with a keyboard come up, just like your smartphone, type it in, and then hit next and save. Now that will, whatever you type in there will also display not only on the thermostat, but on your app, which is really nice for seeing what temperatures are in the different rooms of your home. Then you'll place the sensor, hit sensor is placed, and then you're done. You can continue adding more sensors up to 20, or if you hit done, it'll bring you back to the home screen or installer setup, depending on what mode you went in to add this additional sensor. So when you're identifying priority and viewing sensors, again, this is like the home screen. We can tell right off the bat how many sensors are we currently looking at. And that goes for whether it's a remote sensor or the sensor within the thermostat. And above there, the current room temperature, all the way at the top, you see the home and the number 1. So we know that this T10 is only looking at one current sensor. If I were to type or click on that with my finger, that number 1 in the home button, I'll get the next screen. That'll bring up all my current connected sensors. It'll also tell me the current room temperature that those sensors are reading. And it'll also give me priority options. So this is where there's a lot of information. I can hit selected rooms. I have two options. I can do selected or active. So let's say I hit selected rooms, and right now I want to average the living room and family room. I'll just click those. They'll be highlighted in green. I'll hit done. That home button on the screen, at the home screen, will actually go to 2, and it'll display the average of the 72 and 69 degrees. And my system will control to the average of the selected rooms. So when you go selected rooms, keep in mind that the motion detection from the indoor sensors is not used for control. It's only the manual selection. And you can do this by schedule or by an override right at the thermostat or app. And if I were to hit active rooms, that's when my motion sensor on the remote sensors comes into play. Right now, my living room and master bedroom are occupied, and I can tell that because there's a little green figure to the left of those sensor readings. Again, when I have 2 rooms occupied like this, my home screen will show that home with the number 2 next to it. So that the home screen can show up to 20 active rooms or selected rooms all the way down to 1. And when active rooms is selected, the room that the thermostat is in will be shown in gray, since that room does not have the motion sensor. Scheduling on the device is really simple and intuitive. You can do this on the device or through your phone. You can select your schedule type, whether you want it to be just non-programmable, or you could do same every day, week, or a 5-2, which is weekdays and weekends defer, or you could do 7 days, so every day is different. We do have a nice scheduling wizard. If you were to hit, let me choose, it'll say, what time do you wake up? And you'll scroll through up and down. You'll select the time. For this example, we'll say 6 a.m. That's really nice. It operates just like you're setting an alarm on a smartphone. Once you select the time you wake up, it'll ask you, what do you want priority? So do you want selected rooms or do you want active rooms? And if you go selected, what rooms do you want to average when you wake up? And then what temperature do you want when you're waking up before you leave for the day? So you can do your cool and heating set point and hit next, and it'll continue to walk you through the schedule. Okay, another great opportunity and flexibility with the T10 is at night. A lot of times residential properties, they have a temperature deviation between different rooms in the home. At night, upstairs in the summertime, oftentimes I hear homeowners say that it's hotter upstairs than during the day, and then below, in the first floor where the thermostat's located. So what we can do is put the T10 on the wall on the first floor where the existing thermostat is, and put the remote sensor up in the master bedroom. And we can educate the homeowner that at nighttime you can take over control to the bedroom and ignore the rest of the house, or we could throw the master bedroom temperature sensor into the average. So it'll actually find the average of where you're trying to control, and they'll be more comfortable. You can also utilize geofencing, which we have some slides on in addition to scheduling. So if you want to use geofence, you can do, based off your phone location during the day, and then at night set a sleep schedule, which will be sleep and wake, which is great if you have a very active schedule that changes every day. You can take advantage of your geofence during the day and then a schedule at night for your sleep. Scheduling on your device, when you're choosing which sensors, again, what's highlighted in green on the selected rooms, and then which rooms have the person icon on to the left of them is which ones will be active. When you're looking at the active sensors, there is an algorithm. So when I come into that room, it's going to take some time and know that I'm there, and I'm not just walking in the room to grab something and leave, and before it initiates that sensor into the equation. And then we have geofencing. So what geofencing is you select, on the right there would be basically your house. You set a radius, you consume that radius in or out, and it's a geofence radius. I hit save. It knows that when I'm home, I want it to be 75 degrees for cooling, and maybe I want it to be 78 when I'm away. Well, I don't need to change the thermostat manually every time I leave. The thermostat reacts to my location. So when I leave that bubble, it automatically sets me back, saves me money. And when I come back, return home, it knows I'm heading home because I crossed the geofence, and it brings it back down to 75 degrees. And that's adjustable. And the other thing that you can do, if you have multiple phones, say husband, wife, and or kids, you can set it that the last person how it works is the last phone that leaves that radius will set it back. So if the husband leaves, wife's still home, it still maintains that comfortable level. But when she leaves and everybody's vacant from the home, it'll step back and save money. So it's a great balance between comfort and in energy savings. So the display of the T10 thermostat, you have two options when the screen goes idle. So when you haven't touched the screen, haven't been interacting with it, it'll go to an idle mode. And on the left, you have an analog clock display mode, which shows your current room temperature at the top, and then an analog clock in the middle. And then the bottom, if you're connected to the internet, it'll show outdoor temperature. Moving to the right, same setup, but you'll have a digital clock at the top, and the current room temperature will be big and bold there in the center, which is currently 70, and then bottom would show outdoor temperature. And these are adjustable, so you can either set the analog or the digital clock. And keep in mind, those fonts are blue. And what that tells me is that we're in the cooling mode, but we're not actively calling for cooling. So if you go to the third screen, we're in cool mode. We're set to 85, but we're already 70 degrees. We don't need the cooling to be running. So the background of the thermostat will be white and the font will be blue. as soon as we come home and change that set point to, let's say, 68, and our compressor or cooling does come on and is actively running, the screen swaps to and inverts to the background will be blue and the font will be white. This is really nice visual display for your homeowner, so that way they can look across the room and determine what mode that their system is in, as well if it's currently running or not. And then on the heating, we have an orange color. So again, on the left, your background's white with an orange font when you're in heating mode, but not actively calling for heating. And then when we actually need heat, and it clicks on to bring on that heat pump, electric heat, or fossil fuel, you will go orange background with a white font. And then the idle screen will keep that and hold that color scheme whether the equipment's running or not, so that way you have a great visual aid for your homeowner. There's customized inactive displays. So, keep in mind, if you have this thermostat in the hallway, and if it's inactive, you want to adjust your backlight to maybe you want it bright for sleep time and inactive, so that way you can use it as a nightlight. But if it's in the master bedroom or things, you'll want to scroll down, maybe make that brightness down to 10%. So you'll be able to adjust that in 10% increments. And you can actually hit test backlight so you can see what you're setting up for your homeowner before you leave. And if you ever have any questions in regards to what you're setting up, the top right there shows an eye icon, and that's your information button. So if I were to click on that, that would give me an example here. So let's say I'm trying to set my humidification set point, but I'm the homeowner. I don't really know what that means. I do get some visual indicators, which dry versus comfortable, up and down, and I can hit save. However, if I'm not sure, I can hit that I button for more information, and it comes up and it'll tell me that you can use the up and down arrows to set the humidity levels that you prefer. Press options if frost or condensation appears on your windows, which is window protection. So we'll talk about that later, but the main takeaway here is if you need more information, just click on the I button and the thermostat will prompt you with those details. We also have notifications, which is great. So you're probably familiar with, if you get a text on your phone, you get a little red arrow, red dot, tells you your text or that you have a text or how many. Same thing on our thermostat. So on the 3 bars at the bottom, the menu button, it will come up red if you have a notification. It'll tell you how many notifications. And those notifications can include filter replacements, humidifier pad replacements, or if your heat pump has gone into fault. The key thing here is if they do get that alert, they can know who to call with their contractor information. So the contractor can enter their company name, company phone number, website, and/or email, and it'll prompt the homeowner exactly who to call upon any of those notifications or if their system needs service. So it's a great way to generate repeat business. Thermostats wired sensor inputs that work with the T10. So you do have the option to do any 10K or 20K thermistors that are labeled here on the indoor air sensors. So you can do a hardwired indoor sensor in addition to the wireless indoor sensors that the thermostat can be utilized with. And you can also utilize the S terminals for an outdoors air sensor. So that one there at the bottom is a 10K thermistor. And that would be great to populate the screen with outdoor temperature and use it for balance point. But keep in mind, if you do have access to the internet and the thermostat is connected to the Wi-Fi, it'll display the outdoor temperature from the internet without the need to run a hardwired outdoor air sensor. We also have one IAQ device that we can control with the T10. So many control options for humidification. It'll ask you what kind of model you have. So it'll say, do you have evaporative, whether it be bypass or fan, or do you have steam? And with that, after you select it, it'll ask you, how do you want to run the humidifier? Do you want it to only run with the call for heat? Or maybe if I have steam, I can run it independent. I don't need the heat to run because the steam is generating its own heat and humidification. So if I have that, I can do humidify independently and on demand. And I can tell the thermostat, do I want to call for fan on a call for humidification, or do I want to have my humidifier bring the fan on? So there's plenty of flexibility and options with the T10 and humidification control. Furthermore, you can set your set point from the app or right from the display. And it'll also ask you things such as window protection. So what that means is I know that I'm the thermostat, I know the outdoor temperature, I know I need humidity, but as the temperature outside drops, maybe I want to drop my humidity set point so that way I don't put frost or condensation on the windows. So I can adjust that based off of window protection level. And the higher number level provides more protection, but will limit the amount of humidity. So if you want to go less cautious, you can lower that number, but mainly what it does is prevents window frost or condensation. And this is an example of what that would look like if you're looking at the forecast, how you'll want to lower to prevent frost. We can also get notifications. So outside of the filter reminders we already talked about, we can do canister reminders if we have a steam unit, or if we have a evaporative model, we can get a reminder when to replace that pad. So whether you set it up for based off runtime or calendar year, it generates repeat business and make sure that the homeowner's equipment is being serviced and you're getting reminders when it needs to. Dehumidification control, we've got 4 options. So if we had a separate dehumidifier, which would be like dry contact going to a DR 65, 90, or 120 pint unit that a Honeywell home has, we can wire it in accordingly, and we would select whole house dehumidifier. Or we can do AC, which is your air conditioning with low speed fan, air conditioning with high speed fan, and lastly, we can overcool up to 3 degrees. So we can go 3 degrees below set point to try to wring out some extra moisture that was within the home. Ventilation, we can either hook up an energy recovery ventilator, a heat recovery ventilator, or an outside air damper. And when we do that, we can program the thermostat to either run ASHRAE controls or percentage of on time. The nice thing here with the T10, if we're controlling one of these devices, we can also tell the system fan to come on whenever we're ventilating. Another thing we can do is lockouts. So given that the T10 knows the outdoor conditions, we can lock out ventilation if we have really high outdoor temperature or really low outdoor temperature. And again, if it's really high outdoor dew point. So if it's hot and humid outside, maybe we don't want to bring on the ventilator because that'll introduce a lot of sticky air into the home. And then we can lock out during humidity or dehumidification calls or during sleep mode. T10 Wi-Fi network and how to get it connected is really nice here because of the display, we can, as a technician, connect this thermostat to the homeowner's Wi-Fi network without pulling a phone out of our pocket. So we would hit the menu button on the bottom of the home screen, scroll down to where you see Wi-Fi, enable Wi-Fi by clicking that toggle button, and then choose network. So all the local networks will populate, much like it would show on a computer or phone. You select the homeowner's network name. That keyboard will pop up that we showed before, and you'll type in the homeowner's password for their Wi-Fi network. At that point, that thermostat is now connected to the internet, and the homeowner will walk through how to connect it to the app. Once they do connect it to the app, they can do things such as scheduling or selecting priorities. They can also set, alerts, the geofence, and you can switch from geofence out to back to schedule or have a combination of both. They can manage alerts, so your filter reminders, set up third-party integrations. We can change modes or change fan modes as well. Set sleep brightness mode remotely from the thermostat app, which is really nice as well. And you do your reminders, so indoor temperature alerts, whether you have high or low conditions in temperature, humidity, loss of power, it'll notify us. How often do we want to be notified to change the filter? And then we can also reset the Wi-Fi from the app if we have any errors occur. Or if we're changing out our Wi-Fi router and the network name is changing. From the menu bar, you can also go in installer options. Keep in mind, when you go in installer options, there is a code that you need to get in. So that's utilized to keep homeowners out of changing things that are important to the operation of the system. That code is going to be the 4-digit date code. And that 4-digit date code will be first 2 numbers is the year, and second 2 numbers is the week in that year the thermostat was manufactured. You can get that code by pulling the thermostat off and looking at the back of it, but we suggest you not do that because that will interrupt power and to the thermostat, and you'll have to wait for it to reboot and do time delays before cooling kicks back on. So what we suggest you do is go into the menu icon, choose thermostat information, go down, and you'll see that it'll be either in thermostat information, or you can see it in equipment status or dealer information. It'll be the 4-digit date code. Once you enter that, you can look and do installer setups. So change your system types and your IAQ control. You can run tests. So if you're there for a service call or maintenance, you can actually override the thermostat's delays internally and cycle down the heating, cooling, or IAQ equipment. Add, remove sensors, and see thermostat information in regards to MAC ID, model number, date code, and so on and so forth. There's plenty of wiring applications, a lot of information on this screen here, but just want to keep in mind that this does come in the installer setup, installer options, and the instructions. So please keep them and refer to them on the given applications that you have. But again, the T10 can go up to 3 heat, 2 cool, 1 IAQ device for heat pump applications, and then 2 heat, 2 cool conventional. And then here's our install diagrams for IAQ. On the bottom left of your UWP, you have 2 U contacts, and that U stands for universal. If we need dry contacts, we're going to swap that dip switch down, and it will be allow you to put a wire in the bottom left U as well as the one on top of it, and that'll provide dry contact to either a powered humidifier, dehumidifier, or to a ventilator like an ERV. And then if we want if we need to output 24 volts on a call, we'll swap that switch up, and it will make a jumper connection, so that way whenever we have a call for our IAQ, it'll output 24 volts. So if you're hitting an outside air damper, it will energize that and send 24 volts out from thermostat, stroke that damper open. Or if I had like a bypass humidifier, it will send 24 volts out and hit the solenoid of that humidifier when I have a call for humidification. We do have third-party smart home partners, and keep in mind this list is continuously growing very rapidly. Some of the key ones would be your Google Assistant and Amazon. Apple's HomeKit will be available later via over-the-air update in a future software release. But this is a great opportunity if you see an Amazon device or a Google Assistant sitting on the counter of one of your homeowners, and they want a thermostat that works with it. This T10 works directly with those devices. So you can control that thermostat via your voice. And we have other manufacturers that we work with, such as Savant and other home automation platforms.
Thanks, Sean. So now is the time that we're going to be answering your questions. And along with Sean is Kenny Forrest, who is another talented contractor development specialist, who is going to be joining in for the Q&A session. So good afternoon, Kenny. What questions do you have for us?
Good afternoon. We've actually got some really good questions from this group today. First, let's hit some common questions, and then we jump into the room questions. So first one on the list is what happens if you set up for active rooms and none of the rooms detect motion? Sean, you wanted to grab that one?
Sure. Yeah, if you have active rooms set up, keep in mind that the sensors aren't utilized on the activity to sense home or away. They're just occupied or unoccupied for that individual room. So we'll revert back to the T10's internal sensor and control to that. Another one is if active rooms are set for priority, does the T10 go into setback mode if it detects no movement from any of the sensors after a specific period of time?
Yeah, I'll grab that one from you. So it's just the opposite of what he just said. So if it's in priority, then that's your main temperature reading that it's going to do. So it's not going to set back to the thermostat unless you tell it to set back. Another good one, it looks as if all legacy RedLINK accessories are not compatible with the T10. So this is a big question. So if so, how does the T10 control and send a control signal to a humidifier?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, the new RedLINK technology that the T10 is utilizing is the 3.0. and it is compatible with just a remote sensor right now. So if you do have a humidifier, it will require at least one more wire in the wall to be physically wired from the thermostat to that piece of equipment. And another common question here, Kenny, it looks like the T10 is not square like the other T-Series products. If that's true, what was the reason for the change?
A larger display. We want to put some large numbers out there. Throughout history, the thermostats, everybody's always complained about the small numbers in the market. So we threw out some big numbers for you. Nice color displays for heating and cooling. So really a cosmetic feature for you guys.
Another thing I'd like to add on that is with the vertical display, it really reminds homeowners of of how they're interacting with their smartphone. So they know how to scroll up and down. It's something that they know and look at every day, that vertical display. And to go with Kenny said, bigger numbers, nice, beautiful display. So looks like at this time, we're going to open it up to our Q&A from the chat and start answering questions that come in.
All right, so we got quite a few in here that look pretty good. We've got one here. If you use multiple remote sensors, does it always average, or can you select which it reads from? Sean, you kind of touched on base on that one. You want to go ahead and clarify?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this T10 is powerful. It can have up to 20 remote sensors. However, you can just select just one to control to. So you can have any option from 1 all the way up to 20. But if you want, you can just control from one control point.
Awesome.
I got a question here for you, Kenny. Is the wire adapter module going to be updated to allow for multi-stage equipment and or other features?
To my knowledge, not that I know of at the moment for that. You're talking about the C-wire adapter, correct?
That's correct.
Yep.
The only thing I would add to that is, it can be utilized with multi-stage equipment if you have the extra wires. So let's say you had 5 wires but needed 6. 4 would go in, and you would have a total of, the 5th one would bypass. So you could do somewhat, it does add you an extra conductor, so it would work with multi-stage as long as you have just one common that you're short. Any hope of legacy RedLINK products being refreshed with RedLINK 3.0 zone boards, or like the EIM or ERM? I would say that right now those legacy products are RedLINK 2.0, but we're constantly looking at the portfolio and adapting it for compatibility purposes.
Gotcha. Here's another great one too. Does a T10 act as a sensor, or does it require wireless remotes?
T10 does have an internal sensor, so you can utilize it in the average, which will be displayed on those prioritizing screens, and you can use it just as a T10 without any remote sensors.
I'd like to touch on that too. So it's not a motion sensor; it's a temperature sensor. Usually the thermostat's put in the most active part of the home, so to have it as a motion sensor, you're constantly keeping it engaged.
Perfect.
We've got a few more here. When using the Honeywell Home app, what temperature will you see if you're using the wireless sensor? Thermostat or sensor, or can you choose? Great question.
Yeah, I'll take that one, Kenny. So yeah, it depends on what you're prioritizing. So if you're just doing one remote sensor, that's what will show up. If you're doing a remote sensor with another remote sensor or the thermostat, it'll display the average. Here's one. Are all functions available on smartphone or tablet?
Let's see, which one did you jump to?
You feel all at the bottom there. Are all functions available on the smartphone or tablet?
Yes, they are. Plus more. You're getting also the geofencing by using the Honeywell Home app.
And geofencing is a great feature. So if you have customers that are on the go quite often, they're coming and going, their schedule's not the same every day, I encourage utilizing geofence as long as they're well savvy enough and have a smartphone. Here's a question. I got locked out of a T4 this weekend and had to put a new stat in because I could not find the unlock code. Date code did not work. Kenny, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to?
That's actually a new one to me. It should just be the date code on a T4. The only thing changes is when we get into Wi-Fi and you're adding the 1, 2, 3, 4 to the date code.
Yep. So on some of the legacy product like the 8000, it is the date code. The T4s, what I have seen is that you can enter just 1, 2, 3, 4, and it allows you to get in. However, like Kenny said, if it's a Wi-Fi, it's got to be 1, 2, 3, 4 plus the date code. That's on the T6 Wi-Fi's.
That actually led into another good one. Can the T10 be locked out?
It can, and there's a couple options with that. You can do fully unlocked, which is kind of what we walked through today, partially locked where the homeowner or tenant can adjust set points and modes, or fully locked, and it's just basically going to be a display and there's no interaction to the thermostat. Here's one for you, Kenny. Will this controller do dehumidification by overcooling? And that's something that we did touch on earlier. You can overcool by up to 3 degrees. So if your set point's 72, but it's still really humid in there, we get the set point. We can go down to up to down to 69, and let the room naturally reheat itself. And so we'll draw out some moisture that way.
Can you hear me now, Sean?
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that. I got cut out there for a second.
Not a problem. We had another question come in for you, and that was when you have a hardwired outdoor sensor that's been wired to the T10, where on the stat is the outdoor temperature shown? And is it the same place as if the internet-based local weather would be shown?
Correct. It's going to be shown at the bottom of the stat. It's
Perfect.
just taken over from the Wi-Fi reading.
Okay. And can the T10 be private labeled?
That goes back, you kind of touch base on that. So when you're actually putting in the contractor information, that's kind of best practice for your installer or the technician to go ahead and put that in there. We really wanted to make this an easy one-touch kind of get the homeowner to the right place the fastest they can. So once their notification sets up in there, that's a one-touch button that's going to show them what the notification was and who can help them fix it. So that's going to be a best practice during installation. Personalizing it, it is a very hard glass screen on it. Our personalization is not a stamp-on like most. It's actually like an engraving. So we will not be offering that at the moment.
Perfect. And then you kind of just touched on this, but I wanted to address this question if you can answer. Building on the setback question, can occupancy sensing be used to mimic the geofence? So that way you can revert to energy saving temperatures when everyone is out of the house.
I think that would fall more into scheduling than actually using the motion sense on those.
I agree. And I just want to reiterate to, that the motion sensors are not utilized for home and away, but just if the individual rooms are occupied or not.
Another one to fall on that, a great one for the sensors that I get all the time, is how far away do you have to be, or how close to the sensor do you have to be before it activates? Generally, you want to keep a rule of thumb about 20 to 30 feet from the sensor, being that there's a lot of factors that actually play into this. The height, body size, layers of clothing, temperature of the clothing, angles of the room, where is it put at? So a good rule of thumb is about 20 to 30 feet.
Perfect. Here's another one. So this customer, sounds like they come across a range of thermostats that when they go to swap out, some of them, the old ones, such as our chronotherms, they had a big footprint. And when you go to replace with a newer looking stat, slim, more attractive on the wall, but that leaves some wallpaper holes it to cover. So does the T10 have a sub base that's will cover that big footprint?
Yes, you actually touch base on that. That's going to be the secondary piece that comes in the box.
And that's another thing that you want to reiterate, that it does come in every box. It's an option. You don't have to use it, but it's there if you need it. It's pretty wide, the optional cover plate, so it covers most, but it's just the one size. if you need it. So just keep that in mind. There might be some really older thermostats that go beyond that that will require some adjustments on the wall. Some other questions that are coming in here. Let's see. The good point here on that cover plate, it is different than the T6 one that comes in the box. So the T6 comes with a smaller cover plate where the T10 is larger. If you got to go even larger, you basically take the exact same T10 with the small ring attached, put it on the large ring that the T6 has, and that's almost the size of about 7-inch square. So it's a really nice look. It's a white background, big cover plate with a T10 mounted centrally on it. So here's another question. What's the main differences between the trade version, which is our T10, and the retail T9 version? Kenny, do you want to take that one?
I'm really familiar with the T10. I don't deal much with the T9 in my area.
Yeah, the T9, big difference is the warranty. So any of our thermostats that are bought in the trade are going to be a 5-year warranty, whereas if they're bought in retail, it's going to be like a 2-year warranty. Our trade warranties start the day you put it on the wall. So if you had it, for a month or so and then you installed it, it doesn't start till the day you installed it. The features of the scheduling are different too. So the T10 can do more scheduling, staging options than the T9. The T9 can't do dual fuel. It doesn't have the same reminders and setup functions as the T10. And then from an aesthetic point, on the T10, the bottom right will say Pro Series, and that's for all of our trade thermostats. So that's a good differentiator too, so you know which one that you're working with.
Another one we get quite a bit is they want to know if you can set up multiple users for that one thermostat. Yes, you can on the Honeywell Home app. You can set up as many users as you want on it.
And that's really nice because as soon as you invite a user, you're going to invite them via their email address, and that's the email address that user would create their account. So if you've got, husband, wife, maybe the husband creates the account during the install. He's got the device on his phone, his app. He asks his wife to create her own account with her email address. All he needs to do is put her email address in there. Next time she logs in, that T10 will populate. And that's really important for if they're going to take advantage of geofence. And now the system will know I've got multiple counts to look at. So if one person leaves, the other person's still home, we don't want to change the thermostat set point. Which also brings up a great point. If you do leave, let's say you've gone out on date night, maybe the in-laws or your parents are watching the kids, you both leave that geofence, it can trigger that thermostat to go back to a setback mode. However, whoever's there, the babysitter or whatnot, can still go and adjust the temperature within the home right at the thermostat, which will override the geofence.
Another good one, what was that? I just lost it here. Why doesn't the changes you make on your phone or your app show instantly on your thermostat? And this gets brought up by really customers that are sitting there looking at the thermostat and hitting their phone. What they need to understand is that there's going to be a delay within the Wi-Fi signal. So give it a few minutes and it should update or populate. If it does not, then have them check their Wi-Fi signal to the thermostat. They might have lost Wi-Fi connection.
That's a great point. And it also brings up the fact that the T10 is our first thermostat that can connect to a 2.4 gigahertz network, Wi-Fi network, or a 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi network. So typically in the past, there's only 2.4 that they had to choose from, but the T10 offers more flexibility. So that way we can connect to either framework. And I think that pretty much addressed all the questions that were in the chat. So at this point, I'd like to turn it back over to Dawn and thank everyone for attending. And Dawn, if we can give the mic back to you.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Thanks, Sean, and thanks, Kenny. So this concludes our training on the T10, the Game Changer thermostat. A few things to pass along before we wrap up. Our webinar schedule can be found at www.resideo.com/webinars. We've had, again, many requests about our recorded sessions. Those webinars are now being posted on our website. For our contractors who did not include their NATE ID during the registration process, but would still like to get credit, please send an email within 7 days of the day of attendance to homes.university@resideo.com with your first and last name and your NATE ID. We will then go ahead and submit it on to NATE for credit. If you've already provided your NATE ID, there is no further action needed. And then 2 quick final items. You will be receiving a survey email about today's training. Please take a few minutes to complete this vital information as we value your feedback. And in addition, you will also receive a pop-up survey after today's training. And many thanks to our presenters, Sean Sullivan and Kenny Forrest. We invite you to please come back and see us again soon. Our next training will be on Thursday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, Thursday, May 28th. Thank you for joining us and for your time today. Have a wonderful Tuesday, everyone.